Have you ever found yourself holding back? Not because you doubted your idea or ability, but because you feared looking unpolished, unready, or just plain messy in front of the people who matter? If so, you're absolutely in the right place. Welcome to Beyond the Pattern, Life and Leadership Unlocked. I'm your host, Bukola, keynote speaker, HR strategist, and leadership coach with over 20 years of experience supporting leaders through growth and transition. I'm also a first-generation Nigerian American. My name, Bukola, means added to the greatness in Yoruba, and this podcast is one way I live that out. We're living in a time of constant acceleration. AI, automation, and performance culture push us to go faster and do more. But speed isn't the same as wisdom, and going fast doesn't mean we're moving forward. That's why I created this space to reclaim the human side of leadership. If you want to stay connected, be sure to follow the show and hit subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you won't miss any episode when it drops every other week. Whether this is your first time listening or you've been following since day one, I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Bukola. Welcome to Beyond the Pattern, Life and Leadership Unlocked. This is the show where we get honest about what it really takes to grow, to shift, and to lead, especially when it means leaving comfort behind. So lately, people have been coming up to me out and about, and it's interesting. I'll get, hey, Bukola, what are you doing? What are you up to? And I'm like, what do you mean? They'll say the podcast. I'm not used to hearing you share this much online. And I'm like, yeah, I'm so far out of my comfort zone. I can't even tell you. And they'll say, really? I can't tell. You seem like a pro. That's interesting because all this is difficult for me. So I kind of chuckle and laugh to myself because I didn't grow up with social media or the internet. I've gotten more comfortable with it over the years because it's become a bigger part of our lives. But this podcast, this level of openness, this is all new to me. I've gutted and restarted episodes so many times, not because I had nothing true to say, but because there's a lot to consider. I kept hitting this invisible wall, thinking, is it enough? Is it safe to share this? Do I need to share more of this? It's a lot to factor in. And then I'll hear people say, Bukola, you make it look so easy. You sound so polished. You sound professional. And I just smile. Because if you only knew how much goes into this, I think you'd be surprised. At least for me. This podcast is one of the hardest and most stretching ventures I've ever taken on. Not because of the tech or editing, although that is serious business. It's the vulnerability, the discomfort of showing up unscripted and uncertain. It wakes up one of my oldest patterns, the need to look good. That need to look good sounds like, don't mess up. Don't speak until every I is dotted. Don't show the cracks. This pattern can help us survive, especially in rooms where we've had to be twice as good to be taken half as seriously. But it quietly blocks growth, connection, and transformation. Now let's talk about the brain. You know, I love talking about the brain. So your brain is wired for safety, right? Neuroscience shows the brain treats social rejection much like physical pain. Pitching a new idea or letting yourself be seen can feel almost as risky as physical danger. Let me tell you about two studies I've come across. So there's the Gallup 2023 study, and it talks about how 61% of employees hold back ideas at work for fear of being judged. Then there's another study in 2005 by MIT, and it talks about how most people went along with the group, even knowing it was wrong, just to avoid standing out. So all this is just, it just makes me think about how I'm asking you to shift and I'm having to shift as well. So it's the shifter having to shift. And I'm definitely leaning into it as much as I can. It was also really funny. I bumped into a fellow speaker of mine. We both do public speaking, and he challenged me because he heard the podcast. And he was like, and his name's Chiefy, right? So Chiefy was like, Bukola, people want to see the process, the messy moments, not just the polish. We want more of you, more of you, more of you. And so he just cracks me up because he knows me and he's just like, bring all of you. to the podcast. And I'm just like, I'm bringing as much as I can. So anyway, he told me to show them what it means to be in the middle of the shift. And he's right. Chiefy is right. Trust isn't built on perfect results. It comes when we let people see us in motion, not just after we've arrived. Now, I talked about my coaches and I talked about how they've always told me to just do your best. So growing up, do your best was my code. It wasn't about competing against anyone. It was about doing your best. But sometimes that turns into make sure you look good at all times as well. And when that happens, we trade progress for safety and lose the chance for real connection. Now, let's finish up the shift framework because we already spent the earlier episodes just really going through the different steps. And for those of you who are joining just today, I'll just give you some background. So the shift framework is a framework I developed, and it's designed to really help leaders uncover the unconscious patterns that may be helping or hurting them. And this framework is designed to really help you come up with ways to move past those patterns or solutions to help create new patterns that are geared towards results. So there are 5 steps in this framework. I already went through 4 of the steps, and I'm going to touch on the 5th today. But just to orient you, I'll just go through the 5 steps. So it starts off, it's spelling out the word shift. So the first step is S, which is spot the pattern. And that's really just noticing when you're running on autopilot or hedging or shutting down or just playing it safe. So some of the questions you could ask are, why do I keep quiet when I actually have a question? Why am I volunteering for yet another project when I know I'm already at my max? Then H is hear the lesson. That's where it's good to pause and ask, what is this frustration or what is this fear trying to teach me? Or you could ask, am I holding an old belief about strength or image or acceptance that's steering my actions? Then we have I, investigate the impact. So this is where you might find yourself just really trying to understand what's actually happening to you or to your team or even the business because of this pattern you're noticing. Then we have F, which is find new ways to shift. A question you might ask, a few questions are, what haven't you tried yet? Who haven't you approached? Is there another style, energy, or solution that might move things forward, even if it feels uncomfortable? And then the final step is T, try the shift until you transform. And the goal is to take a real imperfect step, go public, be honest, and learn as you go. That's the shift framework. And I want to lean into the T because we're on the final step, and just leaning into the T will just kind of close out the series. So trying the shift isn't about perfect change overnight. Trying the shift, it's the decision to experiment in public, get feedback, and keep learning. Trying the shift means letting your team and your boss hear when you're stretched, asking what would support others before you assume, or admitting you don't even have all the answers and testing something new in real life. Don't overthink it. Don't wait until it's smooth or certain. The goal is to just try. Try until it feels real. Try until you recognize yourself, and try until you transform. Now, most people see me as strong and polished. I would say those are some aspects of who I am some of the time, but pain is also sometimes there. It's just maybe not as easy to see given some of what I shared about my background. But pain isn't always tears. And so I want to take a moment to just touch on pain a little bit more because it can show up in different ways. Sometimes pain is discipline. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's recording an episode 90 times before hitting publish and still unsure. So for years, I filtered out my sarcasm, soul, and creativity thinking it was safer. Now I'm learning that integration is the shift, becoming visible, not just staying safe. So let me tell you about Edgar. I want to move into a coaching situation that I came across recently. So I'm going to call him Edgar for confidentiality. A little bit about Edgar to give you some background. So he's early in career and he's a rising leader at a pharmaceutical company. He's sharp, driven, and recently got promoted to lead a team that includes some of his former peers. Now, Edgar's known for his servant leadership style. He cares deeply about his people and wants to do right by them. But lately, that same team has started to pull away. He's juggling a complex product launch, growing compliance demands and high expectations from his manager. Edgar reached out. He reached out to me as a coach because even with all his strengths, something felt off. His team wasn't as engaged. Communication had slipped. And though he didn't want to admit it, he was starting to feel alone at the top. So I'm going to fast forward to our coaching conversation, and then I'll touch base with you on the other side. Hi, Edgar. What feels most urgent for you to solve right now, given everything on your plate? Yeah, hi, Bukola. I really appreciate you meeting with me. I need to keep the team focused and motivated, not just going through the motions. We're in the middle of a tough product launch and everything keeps shifting. Oh, okay. So what success look like over the next few months for you and your team and the business? I'm glad you asked. Success means we launch on time, meet all the compliance targets. But beyond that, I want the team to feel proud and engaged, not burnt out or checked out. I want them to grow through this and not just survive it. Okay. What's the impact that you hope this will have on the business overall? Okay, if we get this right, we'll hit our KPIs, we'll have better deadlines, fewer compliance misses, and stronger engagement scores. That builds credibility for the future launches. So that's my goal. Okay, so let's go back for a second. You mentioned you see yourself as a servant leader. How would you define that in your own words? Well, yeah, I believe in empowering people, not micromanaging them. I want to support, not control. Okay, that's powerful. That's really powerful, Edgar. The intention behind that is fantastic. What have you done to communicate that leadership style to your team? Honestly, Bukola, I think I've just assumed they see it. I haven't said it outright. I thought delegating and trusting them to own things would be enough. Okay, and what's been the result? Well, some team members have stepped up, but others seem confused or checked out, and I'm getting frustrated. I keep telling them I'm doing this for their growth, but they're not seeing it that way. That brings us to the heart of it. Let's apply the shift framework. What pattern do you notice in how you show up under pressure? Well, honestly, I think I take on too much. I jump in and fix things myself. I assume that's helpful, but it's probably making the team feel like I don't trust them. And that's real insight. Let's walk through what it would look like to shift that pattern intentionally. If you were going to try something different this week, what could that look like? I think I need to name what's happening, to tell them where I've gotten it wrong, and even ask for their input. I also want to loop in my manager so I'm not just guessing about what she needs. Okay. So that's your shift. Okay. So what's one agreement you can make with yourself and your team right now? I'll step up and I'll share openly in our next meeting about what I'm working on, especially about involving them more and asking for their feedback. And then I'll set up a meeting with my manager too to align on the expectations and ask how she wants to stay updated. Okay. And so what's a concrete step that you can take this week to make that real? All of that you just shared, which was great. So I'll just send out an invite for a team roundtable, letting them know the focus is two-way feedback. This way they'll have time to think about it. And I'll schedule that alignment meeting with my manager too. Okay. No, that sounds great. So 3 weeks later, we checked in again. Hi, Edgar. What's changed since we last spoke? Hey, Bukola. Honestly, the team's opening up more. I'm so excited. In that roundtable, someone called out a bottleneck we hadn't even thought about, and we fixed it. So that, along with some other input that I got from the team, has led to our on-time task completion jumping by like 20%. And people seem less frustrated, but I need to monitor because it's still early. Okay. So how are you tracking those results? Well, our team tracker shows better delivery on milestones. We also have a mini compliance audit where there were no major findings. And our quick survey shows people feel more heard. So it's not perfect, but it's making progress. Okay. So what do you think made that possible when you look back to our time, just at the start when we just started meeting? Well, I think there are just so many things, Bukola. I mean, being real with my team and my manager, I think that really was a game changer. I stopped pretending. I mean, I was worried, that things would get really bad. And so I just stopped pretending. I had it all figured out, and I didn't. And then I asked them for input. I made them feel like partners, and yeah, I think that was it. Excellent. Excellent, Edgar. Great job. Let's go ahead and wrap up this session and keep me posted on the progress. Sounds good, Bukola. Okay, so let's do a recap. Okay, so let's talk about the business impact as a result of Edgar's story. So the calls that he arranged with his team, those calls were designed to focus on goals and support. Then he had a one-on-one with his boss to be transparent. And then he connected with cross-functional partners for help, and he audited his own pattern. So as a result, Edgar was able to re-engage his team, build trust with leadership, and break down silos with measurable business impact. And some of the other takeaways for leaders are just that vulnerability can foster ownership and accountability. Feedback accelerates speed and decision making. Modeling shift reshapes culture across the organization, and clarifying with your boss protects focus and results. Now, I want to go ahead and shift to some questions that came in through the website. Just thought it'd be good to just touch on a few. And let's see, the first one is, when do you know it's time to shift, even if things seem fine? So fine is often the first sign of drift. The goal here is to look for the micro signs. So fewer ideas, polite compliance, loss of urgency, or just like the same two voices dominating meetings. That's a sign that you might need to dig a little deeper, look a little further to see if there's more going on there. But yeah, those are a few micro signs to just pay attention to. Next question is, how do I help my team shift when I'm getting resistance or some dig in their heels? So the goal is to model it first, because resistance just comes with the territory. So you could say, I get nervous with change, but I also know we can't improve by accident. Then you can ask, where do you see our usual way making things harder? Just get more of a dialogue. And then shift can be something that you introduce or role model, but even if they have other ideas that result from that conversation, you want to just stay curious and open. The other question is, what if shift backfires? My thing is, treat it like an experiment. We talked about how just not trying to focus on perfection. Let's treat this like an experiment. Stay curious. It's easy to just mention to the team after trying something out, hey, that didn't go as planned. Let's debrief. Let's figure out ways we can try some new things next together. So really make it less about failure and make it more about experimenting. And how do I prove shift is working? So I think, in this data-driven environment, most companies, most environments really appreciate data. And so if you can find ways to connect it to metrics, retention or engagement, or any other business metrics like delivery speed, something like that, renewals, client renewals are up, all that can make a difference, just to track and just notice if there's some change. So I think those are the questions we have. Coming up next, I want to just talk about what you'll see in the next few episodes. So you'll hear from leaders who have tried to shift out loud, who stumbled, adjusted, and kept going. You're going to hear their stories, and hopefully it reminds you that this work is really not about being perfect. You'll see through the twists and turns that many have had to figure out their lives as they go. But it's really about being real, courageous, and emotion. But either way, I think you'll really enjoy the mix of people that you'll hear from. We have a Broadway producer, we have people from the military, we also have, individuals that have moved abroad as a result of some of their experiences in their career. Some really good insight that I hope you'll take something from. These are all people that I respect a great deal. Either they've poured into me as a leader, or I've been able to coach them in some way. So I'm really hoping that you'll stay tuned. For this week, I have a weekly challenge for you, which is shift in action. I want you to think about where you're choosing to look good over being real. Okay, what is this discomfort trying to teach you? Who is this pattern affecting? And then what haven't you tried yet? And then at the end of the day, taking one real public step and watching what happens. Let's see what shows up. And DM me or reach out to me because I'm curious about the result. So that's all I have today, friends. I really appreciate you taking time to listen to me. For many of you, if you've started from the beginning of the Shift series to now, I appreciate you listening throughout this journey. We're going to continue this journey with some new conversations with leaders, sharing their perspectives on their real lives. I hope you continue to stay tuned and trying the shift. Remember, it's not always pretty or safe or guaranteed, but it is honest and it is necessary. I'm Bukola, and yes, the shifter is shifting. So are you. You're listening to Beyond the Pattern, Life and Leadership Unlocked. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good week, everyone. See you soon. Bye. If this episode resonated, I'd love to hear from you. You can text or leave a voicemail at 404-828-0279. That's 404-828-0279. Or you can visit me at bukalaogantala.com to send in a question, share your story, or explore coaching and speaking services. Whether you're leading a team or learning to lead yourself, I'm honored to be on this journey with you. And if you haven't already, hit follow or subscribe so we can keep growing together.